You don't belong in this line, and you certainly don't belong in that seat. The words sliced through the hum of the first-class cabin like a knife. Kiki Vanderholt, a flight attendant with 20 years of seniority and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, stood blocking the aisle, her manicured finger pointing toward economy. The boy she was blocking, 17-year-old Malik, didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just held up his phone. But when Kiki grabbed the intercom to make an announcement that would ruin her life, she didn't realize the man sitting in 1A was recording everything. The air inside John F. Kennedy International Airport was thick with the scent of overpriced coffee and the frantic energy of holiday travel. For 17-year-old Malik Washington, however, the chaos was just background noise. He adjusted the strap of his worn canvas backpack, his heart doing a slow, heavy rhythm against his ribs. This was it. The flight to London Heathrow. The interview. Malik checked his reflection in the dark glass of the terminal window. He didn't look like the typical first-class passenger, or at least, not the kind usually seen on transatlantic flight 882. He was wearing a vintage gray hoodie, comfortable joggers, and sneakers that had seen better days. To the untrained eye, he looked like a kid heading to a basketball tournament. To a trained eye, the hoodie was a limited edition streetwear piece worth $600, and the watch peeking out from his sleeve was a vintage Omega gifted by his grandfather. But Malik preferred to keep things low-key. He liked being underestimated. It was a survival tactic he'd learned early, growing up as a black kid in a world that often made up its mind about him before he spoke a word. Boarding Group 1. The gate agent announced, her voice crackling over the speakers. First-class passengers and Diamond Medallion members, you are welcome to board. Malik took a deep breath. He pulled up his digital boarding pass on his phone. Seat 2A. He joined the line. It was short, mostly older men in bespoke suits, a woman with a small dog in a Louis Vuitton carrier, and a young tech bro type furiously typing on a tablet. Malik stepped in behind the woman with the dog. Almost immediately, he felt eyes on him. It wasn't the passengers. They were too absorbed in their own worlds. It was the flight attendant standing at the entrance of the jet bridge, greeting passengers before they even reached the plane door. Her name tag read Kiki Vanderholt, Senior Purser. She had blonde hair sprayed into a helmet of perfection, a scarf tied with geometric precision around her neck, and a posture that suggested she was the guardian of a very exclusive club. As the businessman in front of Malik passed, Kiki beamed. Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson. Good to see you again. Thanks, Kiki, the man grunted, rushing past. The woman with the dog followed. Oh, precious cargo. Kiki cooed. Let me know if you need extra water for the little one. Then, Malik stepped forward. Kiki's smile vanished. It didn't fade. It simply evaporated, replaced by a look of sharp, practiced suspicion. Her eyes raked over Malik, lingering on his hoodie, his backpack, and finally, his face. She didn't move aside to let him pass. Instead, she took a half step into the center of the doorway, effectively blocking the path to the jet bridge. Zone 5 is not boarding yet, sweetie, she said. Her voice was sickly sweet, the kind of tone one uses with a slow child or a disobedient pet. You need to wait for general boarding. That's going to be about 20 minutes. Malik paused, his thumb hovering over his phone screen. He was used to this. He kept his face neutral. I'm not Zone 5, he said softly. I'm in Group 1. Kiki let out a short, incredulous puff of air, almost a laugh. She tilted her head, her earrings catching the fluorescent terminal light. Group 1 is for first class, hon. Economy boarding is going to be announced later. You need to step out of the line so the actual priority passengers can board. Behind Malik, the tech bro sighed loudly, checking his watch. Ma'am, Malik said, keeping his voice steady, though a familiar heat was rising in his neck. I have a ticket for this flight. I'm in first class. He held his phone out, the QR code and the bold 2A clearly visible on the screen. Kiki didn't even look at the screen. She looked at him. I've been flying this route for 15 years, she said, her voice dropping an octave, losing the sweetness entirely. I know what our first-class clientele looks like. Now, stop holding up the line and go wait by the gate, or I'll have to call security for disrupting the boarding process. Malik froze. The threat was heavy, hanging in the air. He knew the statistics. He knew what happened when young black men argued with authority figures in airports. But he also knew he was right. I'm not disrupting anything, Malik said, his jaw tightening. I'm just trying to board my flight. If you just scan my... I don't need to scan a fake pass, Kiki snapped, loud enough for the people in the terminal to turn their heads. We've had issues with people doctoring screenshots to sneak upgrades. I'm not falling for it today. Back of the line, now. Malik looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the fear behind the arrogance. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was defending a worldview where someone like him didn't get to sit in seat 2A. Is there a problem here? The tech bro behind him asked, stepping up. He sounded annoyed, but not at Kiki. He looked at Malik with mild irritation. Just a passenger confused about his seating assignment, Kiki said, flashing a conspiratorial smile at the man. He's just leaving. Malik didn't move. He planted his feet. I'm not confused, he said, his voice gaining a hard edge of authority that surprised even him. And I'm not leaving until I board the seat I paid for. The standoff at the gate was beginning to draw a crowd. People in the waiting area lowered their newspapers and pulled off their headphones. A mother hushed her crying baby to watch. Kiki's face flushed a blotchy red beneath her foundation. She wasn't used to defiance. In her domain, the 777 aircraft, she was the captain's eyes and ears, the law and the order. To be challenged by a teenager in sweatpants was an insult she couldn't process. You are trespassing on a federal jet bridge entrance, Kiki hissed, leaning in close so only Malik could hear. Do you have any idea the kind of trouble you're getting yourself into? I can have you on a no-fly list before your bags even make the carousel. Check the manifest, Malik challenged. He felt a bead of sweat roll down his back, but he didn't wipe it. If you think I'm lying, check your computer. The name is Washington, seat 2A. Kiki scoffed. I don't have time to run a background check on every kid who thinks he can prank the airline for a TikTok video. She turned to the gate agent, a younger woman named Sarah, who had been watching the exchange with wide, nervous eyes. Sarah, call TSA. We have a non-compliant passenger refusing to clear the boarding area. Sarah hesitated. She looked at her monitor, then at Malik. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Kiki. Sarah started, her voice trembling. I see a Washington here on the list. Checked in an hour ago. Kiki whipped her head around, glaring at her colleague. Don't be naive, Sarah. Anyone can hack a name onto a display these days. Look at him. She gestured wildly at Malik. Does he look like he bought a $12,000 ticket? He's probably using a stolen credit card or a staff standby pass he swiped. Malik felt a sharp pang in his chest. Stolen. It was always the assumption. He remembered his father telling him, son, you have to be twice as good to get half of what they have. And even then, they'll ask you where you stole it from. It's not stolen, Malik said, his voice straining to remain calm. And it's not a staff pass. Then show me the credit card, Kiki demanded, holding out her hand palm up. If you paid for it, you have the card. Show me the ID that matches it. I don't have to show you my financial information, Malik said. I showed you my boarding pass. That is all that is required. Then you aren't getting on this plane. Kiki crossed her arms, physically blocking the scanner. She turned to the tech bro and the other first-class passengers waiting behind Malik. I am so sorry, folks. We're dealing with a security breach. We just want to ensure everyone's safety before we let you on. Security breach. The words rippled through the line. The tech bro took a step back, clutching his laptop bag tighter. An older woman gasped. Kiki had successfully weaponized their fear. She had turned a ticketing dispute into a potential threat. Malik saw the shift in the passengers' eyes. They were no longer annoyed, they were suspicious. They looked at his backpack as if it contained something dangerous. Look, kid, the tech bro said, his voice tight. Just go to the desk and sort it out. Don't ruin this for the rest of us. I'm not the one ruining it, Malik said, looking directly at the man. She is. Kiki stepped forward, invading Malik's personal space. Last chance. Walk away, or I make the call. And if the police come, they aren't going to be as nice as I am. Malik looked past her, down the long tunnel of the jet bridge. He could see the open door of the plane. He could see the other flight attendant inside, organizing magazines. He was so close. Call them, Malik said. Kiki blinked. She hadn't expected that. Call the police, Malik repeated, louder this time. I want a report filed. I want a record of exactly why I'm being denied boarding. Kiki's lip curled. Fine. Have it your way. She grabbed the receiver of the desk phone, punching in a code with aggressive stabs of her finger. Captain? This is Vanderhold at the gate. We have a situation. Requesting authorities to the gate immediately. We have a hostile passenger refusing to stand down. She hung up and smiled a terrifying, victorious smile at Malik. Now, stand aside. She physically grabbed Malik's shoulder to shove him out of the queue. It was a mistake. Malik didn't push back, but he didn't move. He stood like a statue, but the contact an airline employee putting hands on a passenger was a line crossed. Don't touch me, Malik said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Then move, Kiki shouted, losing her composure entirely. She looked at the line of stunned, wealthy passengers. She needed to regain control. She needed them to be on her side. She needed to humiliate him so thoroughly that no one would question her authority. Sarah, hold the boarding, Kiki commanded. She grabbed the public address microphone for the gate area, her eyes locked on Malik. The gate area fell silent as the feedback whine of the PA system cut through the chatter. Kiki Vanderhold held the microphone like a weapon, her knuckles white. She wasn't just addressing the people in line anymore. She was addressing the entire terminal block. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Kiki's voice boomed, echoing off the high ceilings. We are pausing boarding for Flight 882 to London. We have a passenger. She paused for dramatic effect, pointing a long, red-nailed finger directly at Malik, who stood isolated near the desk, who is attempting to board with fraudulent credentials and is refusing to follow crew instructions. Every head turned. Hundreds of eyes fixed on Malik. He felt the heat rising in his cheeks, a burning mix of shame and fury. He wanted to shrink, to disappear into the floor. This was the nightmare. Public humiliation, being paraded as a criminal. Kiki continued, her voice dripping with self-righteous vindication. We take the safety and security of our first-class cabin very seriously. We cannot allow individuals who steal or forge tickets to compromise the exclusivity and safety of our loyal customers. Security is on the way to remove the individual. We appreciate your patience while we deal with this. Disruption. She clicked the mic off. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't a normal silence. It was heavy. It was judgmental. People whispered behind their hands. Is that him? He looks so young. Probably stole a credit card. Kids these days have no respect. Malik stood alone in the circle of empty space that had formed around him. He gripped his phone so tight he thought the screen might crack. He closed his eyes for a second, thinking of his father. Don't react. Don't give them the angry black man. Give them the CEO. He opened his eyes and straightened his spine. He fixed his hoodie, pulling it down neatly. He raised his chin. He looked Kiki dead in the eye. Are you finished? He asked. His voice wasn't loud, but in the silence of the gate area, it carried. Kiki looked taken aback by his composure. She expected shouting, begging, or running. She didn't expect dignity. I'm finished when you're in handcuffs, she spat. Just then, movement stirred from the first-class line. The man who had been first in line, the one Kiki had greeted as Mr. Henderson stepped out of the queue. But it wasn't him who spoke. It was the man behind him. A tall, silver-haired man in a navy cashmere coat stepped forward. He had been watching the entire exchange from behind sunglasses, leaning against a pillar near the window. He hadn't boarded yet. He had been waiting. He removed his sunglasses slowly. He had the kind of face that belonged on currency, weathered, sharp, and radiating an immense, quiet power. He walked past the tech bro, past the lady with the dog, and walked right up to Malik. Kiki's expression shifted from anger to confusion. Sir, you need to stay back. This is a security matter. The silver-haired man ignored her. He looked at Malik. You holding up okay, son? Malik looked at the man. He recognized him vaguely, perhaps from a business magazine on his father's desk. I'm fine, sir. Just waiting for the police. The man nodded. He turned to Kiki. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, which was somehow far worse. Excuse me, miss. He glanced at her name tag. Vanderhol. Did I just hear you announce to the entire terminal that this young man stole his ticket? He has a fraudulent pass, Kiki said defensively, though her confidence wavered slightly. He's blocking the line. I'm just doing my job, sir. If you could please take your seat, I'll handle the riffraff. Riff-raff, the man repeated, tasting the word like sour milk. He reached into his inner coat pocket. Kiki flinched, as if expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a sleek black leather card holder. He extracted a business card and a very specific, heavy metal luggage tag that identified him as a global services chairman. "My name is Preston Sterling," the man said. The color drained from Kiki's face so fast it looked like she might faint. The name was legendary. Preston Sterling wasn't just a passenger. He was the former CEO of the airline's largest partner and currently sat on the board of directors for the Airline Alliance. He was the kind of man who didn't call customer service. He called the owner. "Mr. Sterling," Kiki stammered, her voice trembling. I didn't realize you were on this flight. I'm in seat 1A, Sterling said calmly. Directly in front of this young man, who is in 2A. Kiki froze. But his ticket. "I know his ticket is valid," Sterling said, his voice hardening like steel. "Because I was having dinner with his father, Reginald Washington, last night when he bought it for him." The mention of Reginald Washington, a media mogul and one of the most powerful black men in global finance, hit the gate area like a thunderclap. The whispers stopped. The tech bro's mouth dropped open. Sterling turned to the crowd, then back to Kiki. "You didn't just doubt a ticket, Miss Vanderhold. You publicly defamed a minor. You profiled a paying customer. And you did it while I was standing 5 feet away." Kiki looked around wildly. The gate agent, Sarah, was staring at her shoes. The passengers were no longer looking at Malik with suspicion. They were looking at Kiki with horror. I was just following protocol," Kiki whispered, her voice cracking. "Protocol?" Malik spoke up. He stepped forward, standing next to Sterling. The two of them, the billionaire and the teenager, formed a united front. "Is it protocol to grab a passenger? Is it protocol to announce a fake crime over the PA?" Before Kiki could answer, heavy footsteps echoed down the concourse. 2 Port Authority police officers arrived, hands resting near their belts. "We got a call about a hostile passenger?" the lead officer asked, scanning the group. He looked at Malik, then at Sterling, then at the trembling flight attendant. Kiki opened her mouth to speak, to spin the lie one last time. "Officer," Sterling cut in, his voice commanding, "there is no hostile passenger here. However, I would like to file a report regarding harassment and assault against a minor by airline staff." The officer paused, looking at Kiki. "Is that true, ma'am?" Kiki looked at the officer, then at Malik. The silence in the cabin, or rather, the gate area, was absolute. She realized, with a sinking dread in the pit of her stomach, that the announcement she had made to shame Malik had actually been her own resignation letter. But the drama was far from over. The plane door was still open. The pilot was coming up the jet bridge, and Malik Washington hadn't even made his phone call yet. The silence at gate B12 was broken by the heavy, rhythmic thud of flight boots on the metal floor of the jet bridge. Captain Robert Graves emerged from the tunnel. He was a man of few words, a former Air Force pilot with 30 years of commercial experience, known for running a tight ship. He adjusted his hat, his eyes scanning the scene. The 2 Port Authority officers, the weeping gate agent Sarah, the stoic billionaire Preston Sterling, the calm teenager Malik, and his chief purser, Kiki Vanderhol, who looked as if she were trying to hold back a scream. "We are 15 minutes past pushback time," Captain Graves said, his voice a low rumble. "Why isn't my manifest cleared? Why is the door open?" Kiki lunged toward him, seeing a lifeline. "Captain, thank God, we have a security situation. This passenger," she pointed a shaking finger at Malik, "refused to follow crew instructions, blocked the boarding lane, and I have reason to believe his ticket was obtained fraudulently. I called the police to have him removed so we can depart safely." Captain Graves turned his gaze to the police officer. "Officer, is this young man under arrest?" The lead officer shook his head, looking bored. "No, Captain. We've checked his ID. It matches the boarding pass. The boarding pass is valid. We've run his name. No warrants, no history. As far as the law is concerned, he's a paying customer." Graves turned to Malik. He looked the boy up and down. He didn't see a threat. He saw a kid in a hoodie who looked tired. Then, Graves looked at Preston Sterling. The captain's eyes widened a fraction. He recognized Sterling immediately. Everyone in aviation did. "Mr. Sterling," Graves said, dipping his head respectfully, "I apologize for the delay. We'll get you seated shortly. I'm not the one you need to apologize to, Captain, Sterling said, his voice cool and even. Your purser has just publicly accused this young man of theft over the PA system. She has physically grabbed him, and she is currently refusing to let him board a flight he is booked on. I'm waiting to see how you handle this, because my next call is to the Alliance Board of Directors. Kiki gasped. Captain, he's lying. He's protecting the kid. They're probably working together. It was a desperate, foolish thing to say. Accusing Preston Sterling of being an accomplice to ticket fraud was like accusing the Pope of stealing communion wine. Captain Graves looked at Kiki with a mixture of pity and severe annoyance. Kiki, stop. Just stop. But Captain, I said stop, Graves snapped. You are delaying my flight. You are harassing a premium cabin passenger. And you are insulting a board member. He turned to the gate agent. Sarah. Sarah, scan the young man's pass. Sarah, tears still drying on her cheeks, nodded vigorously. She stepped around Kiki and held out the scanner. Malik stepped forward. He held his phone under the red light. Beep. The machine flashed green. 2A, Washington, Malik. Thank you, Mr. Washington. Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Enjoy your flight. Malik nodded to her. Thank you, Sarah. He turned to the captain. Am I free to board, sir? You are, son, Captain Graves said. He looked at Kiki, his expression hardening. Kiki, get on the plane. Prepare the cabin. We are leaving, now. Kiki stood frozen. Her authority had been stripped away, layer by layer, in front of an audience. She glared at Malik with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. She leaned in as she passed him to re-enter the jet bridge, her voice a venomous hiss that only he could hear. You might have won the gate, she whispered, but you're in my house now for the next 7 hours. Don't expect a comfortable flight. She spun on her heel and marched down the jet bridge, her heels clicking aggressively. Malik took a deep breath. He looked at Sterling. You don't have to do this, Sterling said quietly. We can get you on the next flight. I'll wait with you. You don't have to be in a metal tube with that woman. Malik shook his head. No. If I don't get on this plane, she wins. She gets to think she scared me off. I'm getting in that seat. Sterling smiled, a genuine expression of respect. You're a tough kid, Malik. Your father raised you well. After you. The walk down the jet bridge felt like walking into a gladiator arena. As Malik stepped onto the plane, the atmosphere changed. The air was recycled and cool. The lighting was soft, amber-hued mood lighting designed to relax passengers, but the tension was palpable. Kiki was standing in the galley, aggressively slamming cabinet doors. She didn't look at Malik as he entered. She pretended to be intensely fascinated by a stack of napkins. Malik found his seat, 2A. It was a beautiful suite, with a lie-flat bed, a massive screen, and a direct aisle access. He stowed his backpack. He sat down. He could feel the eyes of the other passengers. The tech bro from the line was in 3A. An elderly woman was in 2F. They were all stealing glances at him. He was the criminal from the announcement. He was the disruption. Sterling took his seat in 1A, directly in front of Malik. He stood up and turned around, addressing the first-class cabin in a voice loud enough to be heard, but polite enough to be socially acceptable. My apologies for the delay, everyone, Sterling said, charmingly. There was a misunderstanding at the gate regarding my young friend here. We're all sorted now. Drinks are on me. It broke the tension. A few people chuckled. The tech bro nodded at Malik. Sorry about that back there, man. She was tripping. Malik offered a weak smile. It's cool. He buckled his seatbelt. He looked out the window at the tarmac, the ground crew loading the luggage. He survived the gate. But as the engines whined to life and the plane began to push back, Malik saw Kiki standing at the front of the aisle for the safety demonstration. She held the oxygen mask in her hand, but her eyes were locked on him. She wasn't looking at the mask. She was staring right at him, her eyes cold, promising retribution. The plane taxied. The engines roared. They lifted off into the gray New York sky. Malik Washington was trapped at 35,000 feet with the woman who wanted to destroy him. The seatbelt sign pinged off as Flight 882 leveled out over the Atlantic. The cabin was quiet, save for the hum of the twin GE90 engines. In first class, this was the golden hour. The time for warm nuts, champagne, hot towels, and the kind of service that justified a $10,000 ticket. Kiki Vanderhold moved through the cabin like a storm cloud. She had composed herself, at least on the surface. Her hair was perfect, her scarf retied. But her movements were sharp, jerky. She started the service at the back of the first-class cabin, working her way forward. This was unusual protocol, usually dictated starting from the front, with 1A, but she was clearly building up to something. She served the tech bro in 3A. Mr. Lewis, a warm towel, some champagne? Her voice was saccharine sweet. Yeah, thanks, he said. She moved to the other aisle. She served the lady with the dog. She served the couple in row 4. Finally, she reached row 2. Malik watched her approach. He had his tray table out. He was thirsty. The adrenaline from the gate had worn off, leaving him parched. Kiki stopped at seat 2F, the elderly woman across the aisle. Mrs. Gable, so lovely to see you. Can I get you a beverage to start? We have a lovely Sauvignon Blanc. Just water, dear, Mrs. Gable said. Of course. Kiki turned. She looked directly at seat 2A. Malik looked up, expecting her to ask him for his drink order. She looked through him. Her eyes glazed over as if seat 2A was empty. She turned her back on him completely and stepped forward to seat 1A. Mr. Sterling, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she addressed the billionaire. Can I get you anything? Sterling looked at her. Then he craned his neck to look back at Malik. He saw Malik's empty tray table. He saw the look of confusion on the boy's face. I believe you skipped row 2, Kiki, Sterling said, his voice dropping the pleasantries. Oh? Kiki feigned surprise. She glanced back at Malik with a look of mock confusion. I thought the passenger was sleeping. I didn't want to disturb him. Policy says we don't wake sleeping passengers for beverage service. Malik was sitting bolt upright, his phone in his hand, eyes wide open. I'm not sleeping, Malik said clearly. I'd like a ginger ale, please. Kiki stared at him. For a second, it looked like she would refuse. Then, with a tight, plastic smile, she said, We're actually out of ginger ale. I can get you tap water. I see a can of ginger ale on your cart, Malik said, pointing to the beverage cart parked 3 feet away. The green can was clearly visible. Kiki's face twitched. That is reserved for mixing cocktails, sir. I cannot give you the whole can. And since you are underage, I cannot serve you the cocktail. So, water? It was petty. It was small. It was pathetic. Water is fine, Malik said. He wasn't going to fight her on a soda. He just wanted to get to London. Kiki poured a plastic cup of water, not the crystal glass everyone else got, and slammed it onto his tray table hard enough that it sloshed over the rim, soaking the sleeve of his hoodie. Oops, she said, deadpan. Turbulence. She turned and walked away. Malik grabbed a napkin and dabbed at his sleeve. He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Sterling, reaching back over the seat. Here, Sterling said, handing Malik his own crystal glass of ginger ale, untouched, and a linen napkin. Take mine. I'm having a word with the captain when I go to the lavatory. It's okay, Malik whispered. She's just trying to get a reaction. If I get mad, she calls the captain and says I'm being unruly. I'm not giving her the satisfaction. Sterling looked at the boy with deepening admiration. You're playing chess while she's playing checkers. Smart. Malik turned back to his phone. He had connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi. It was slow, but it was working. He opened Instagram. His notifications were frozen. The number was stuck at 99+. He refreshed the page. His heart stopped. Before they boarded, while they were standing at the gate, the tech bro behind him, whose handle was at Crypto King, Jay had been live streaming the argument. He had posted a clip titled, United Airlines flight attendant goes Karen on black teen in first class, creates fake security threat. The video was posted 45 minutes ago. It already had 1.2 million views. Malik clicked the comments. OMG, I know that gate, JFK. Wait, isn't that Preston Sterling stepping in? She announced he was a criminal over the PA. Lawyer up, kid. I'm at JFK right now. People are talking about this everywhere. Malik's phone buzzed. A text message from his dad. Son, are you okay? I just saw a video. I'm calling the airline CEO directly. Do not engage with her. Document everything. Malik looked up. Kiki was back in the galley, gossiping with the other flight attendant, a younger man named Todd. Kiki was laughing, drinking a coffee, completely unaware that the ground below was shifting. She thought she was in a sealed tube, safe from the consequences of the world. She didn't realize the digital world had already breached the fuselage. The atmosphere in the cabin began to shift, weirdly. The tech bro in 3A was typing furiously on his laptop. He looked up, made eye contact with Malik, and gave him a thumbs up. He then turned his screen slightly. He was on Twitter. X. The hashtag number Flight 882 was trending. Kiki walked down the aisle again to collect the hot towels. She noticed the passengers were looking at her differently. It wasn't the usual look of deference or politeness. It was curiosity and disgust. She reached Mrs. Gable in 2F. Mrs. Gable, who had been polite earlier, pulled her hand away when Kiki reached for her towel. "I'll dispose of it myself, thank you," the older woman said icily. Kiki blinked. Surely, Mrs. Gable, whatever you prefer." She turned to Malik. She snatched the linen napkin from his table. "Done with this?" "Yes," Malik said. "Good." She leaned in, her voice low. "You know, I checked the manifest again. It's funny how a 17-year-old gets a seat like this. Usually, these are bought with miles. Stolen miles, perhaps? We'll be doing a fraud audit when we land in London. Just a heads up." She was relentless. She couldn't help herself. She needed him to feel small so she could feel big. Malik just looked at her. He held up his phone. On the screen was the video of her at the gate. The view count was climbing, 1.5 million. "I don't think you need to worry about the miles, Kiki," Malik said softly. "I think you need to check your phone." Kiki frowned. "Excuse me?" "The internet," Malik said. "They're watching you." "Right now," Kiki sneered. "Put that away. Phone's off during service." She stormed back to the galley. But the seed of doubt was planted. She saw Todd, the junior flight attendant, looking at his phone in the galley corner. His face was pale. He looked up at Kiki, his eyes wide with horror. "Kiki," Todd whispered. "You need to see this." "I don't have time for TikToks, Todd. Get the salad plates." "No, Kiki," Todd said, holding the screen up to her face. "It's you. It's everywhere." CNN just retweeted it. Kiki froze. She looked at the tiny screen. She saw herself, red-faced and screaming, pointing a finger at Malik. She heard her own voice booming over the PA system. "We have a passenger attempting to board with fraudulent credentials." She read the caption. "Racist airline meltdown. Veteran purser Kiki Vanderhold caught profiling innocent teen." The color drained from her face. The tray of crystal glasses she was holding began to rattle as her hands shook. This is edited," she stammered. "This is out of context." "Kiki," Todd said, stepping away from her as if she were contagious. "The comments. They found your LinkedIn. They found your Facebook. They're tagging the airline." At that moment, the interphone chimed. Ding dong. It was the cockpit. Kiki stared at the phone on the wall. It rang again. Ding dong. She picked it up, her hand shaking so violently the cord slapped against the wall. "Yes, Captain?" Captain Graves' voice was not a rumble this time. It was a blade. "Vanderhold. Operations in New York just patched through to me via satellite. They have a PR nightmare on their hands. They are ordering me to remove you from service immediately." Kiki felt the floor drop out from under her. "Remove me? But I'm the purser. You are to sit in the jump seat for the remainder of the flight," Graves commanded. "You are not to speak to a single passenger. You are not to serve a single meal. Todd will take over as lead. If you so much as look at the passenger in 2A again, I will have the authorities meet you at the gate in London instead of him. Do you understand?" "But Captain, I didn't." "Do you understand?" Graves roared, loud enough that the first few rows could hear it through the galley curtain. "Yes," Kiki whispered. Tears pricked her eyes, not tears of remorse, but tears of humiliation. "Go sit down. Now." The line clicked dead. Kiki hung up the phone. She looked at Todd. Todd didn't look at her. He was busy rearranging the cart, taking charge. He was the boss now. "I'll take the salads out, Kiki," Todd said firmly. "Take the jump seat near the door." Kiki walked to the small, uncomfortable fold-down seat by the exit door. She sat down and strapped herself in. From her vantage point, she could see through the gap in the curtains. She could see seat 2A. She watched as Todd approached Malik with a tray. She watched Todd smile genuinely. "Mr. Washington," Todd said loud enough for Kiki to hear. "I am so sorry about the confusion earlier. Captain Graves asked me to bring you the dinner menu. And we found some ginger ale in the back. Would you like the steak or the lobster tonight? Malik smiled. He took the menu. The lobster sounds great. Thank you, Todd. And Mr. Sterling sent this over, Todd added, placing a small bowl of warm, salted nuts on the table. Malik looked over his shoulder. Sterling raised his champagne glass in a toast. Malik raised his ginger ale in return. Kiki sat in the dark corner of the galley, strapped into the jump seat like a naughty child in timeout. She closed her eyes, but she couldn't shut out the sound of the first-class cabin, enjoying the luxury she was supposed to control. She thought the nightmare was peaking. She thought the worst part was being grounded. She was wrong. The flight still had 5 hours to go. And halfway across the Atlantic, the airline's corporate office in Chicago was drafting a press release. And in seat 2A, Malik Washington was bored. He opened his laptop. He had a video editing project to finish for school. But he decided to start a new project instead. He opened the folder on his phone labeled boarding. He had more footage. He had audio recordings of the service refusal. He began to edit part 2. The Atlantic Ocean is vast, dark, and indifferent to the dramas unfolding 35,000 feet above it. Inside the cabin of Flight 882, however, the atmosphere was suffocating. 3 hours had passed since Captain Graves had banished Kiki Vanderhold to the jump seat. The first-class cabin had been dimmed for the overnight portion of the flight. The stars outside the window were brilliant and cold, but inside, the warm glow of reading lights and seatback screens created a cozy, exclusive world, a world Kiki was now exiled from. She sat in the narrow, uncomfortable crew seat near the forward galley, staring at the scuffed metal of the door latch. Her legs were cramping. Her uniform felt tight. But the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the psychological torture of her own imagination. It's just a misunderstanding, she told herself, her mind racing in desperate circles. The union will back me. I was following security protocols. The boy looked suspicious. I have seniority. She needed to talk to someone. She unbuckled her harness, checking to see if the coast was clear. Todd was in the galley, preparing the mid-flight snack baskets. Kiki stepped into the galley, pulling the curtain shut behind her. Todd, she whispered, forcing a smile. Look, this is ridiculous. Graves is overreacting. You know how he gets. Can you just... Todd didn't even turn around. He was arranging warm cookies on a china plate with meticulous care. Go back to your seat, Kiki. Todd, come on. We flew to Paris together last month. We're friends. She reached out to touch his arm. Todd recoiled as if burned. He spun around, and for the first time, Kiki saw the look on his face. It wasn't fear anymore. It was disgust. We are not friends, Todd said, his voice low and shaking. Do you have any idea what you've done? My sister just texted me from the ground. She saw the video. She asked me if I was the one who stood by and watched a racist attack a kid. You're dragging the whole crew down with you. It wasn't racist, Kiki hissed, her face flushing. It was a security check. He was disrespectful. He was polite, Todd countered, stepping into her space. He was more polite than half the platinum members we serve. You just didn't like that he didn't bow down to you. And now? Now the airline is trending. Number boycott Flight 882 is the number 3 topic in the United States right now. The company's stock dropped 2% in after-hours trading. That's you, Kiki. That's your legacy. Kiki felt the blood drain from her face. 2%? Go sit down, Todd said, turning his back on her again. Before I call Graves and tell him you're trying to intimidate the acting purser. Defeated, Kiki retreated to her jump seat. She felt small. She felt a vibration in her pocket. She had snuck her phone out of her purse before sitting down. Against regulations. She needed to know. She pulled it out, shielding the screen with her hand. She had 0 bars of service, but she had connected to the crew Wi-Fi earlier. Her lock screen was full, not with texts from friends, but with notifications. Instagram, 500 plus new comments. Facebook, 99 plus notifications. LinkedIn, account restricted due to unusual activity. Her hands trembling, she opened Twitter. The first thing she saw was a meme. It was her face, contorted in anger, pointing her finger. The caption read, Karen of the skies. When you realize first class isn't just for people who look like you. She scrolled. This woman, Kiki Vanderhold, has been a flight attendant for 20 years. Here are 3 other stories from passengers she harassed. The internet sleuths had been busy. Someone had dug up a thread from a travel forum in 2019 where a Hispanic family claimed a blonde purser named Kiki had moved them to the back of the plane to accommodate a non-rev pilot. It was an avalanche. It wasn't just this incident. It was a lifetime of microaggressions and power trips being excavated in real time. Kiki dropped the phone. It clattered onto the jump seat floor. She couldn't breathe. The cabin walls were closing in. Meanwhile, in seat 2A, Malik Washington was wide awake. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't laughing. He was editing. He had finished the video of the boarding incident. He had synced the audio. He had added captions. But he hesitated to post the second part. The first part had already set the world on fire. Preston Sterling, in 1A, was also awake. He had his reading light on, reviewing a thick stack of documents. He sensed Malik's restlessness and turned around. "Can't sleep?" Sterling asked softly. "Too much adrenaline," Malik admitted. "And I'm thinking about her." "The flight attendant?" "Yeah. I mean, she was awful, but I see the comments. People are destroying her. I didn't want to ruin her life. I just wanted to get on the plane." Sterling took off his reading glasses. He looked at Malik with a solemn, paternal expression. "Malik, listen to me closely. You didn't ruin her life. Her actions did. You held up a mirror. If she doesn't like the reflection, that is not the fault of the mirror." "But it's millions of people," Malik said, looking at his phone. "And how many people has she done this to before?" Sterling asked. "How many people didn't have a camera? How many people missed their flights, missed weddings, missed funerals, because she decided they didn't belong? You aren't just fighting for yourself, son. You're fighting for everyone who walked down that jet bridge before you." Malik nodded slowly. "You're right. Also," Sterling added, a glint of steel returning to his eyes, "I received a message via the onboard comms from the airline's chairman. He wants to meet us at the gate in London. Prepare yourself. It's going to be a heavy landing." At that moment, the plane banked slightly. The fasten seatbelt sign chimed. Captain Graves' voice came over the intercom, sounding tired but professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our initial descent into London Heathrow. The local time is 7:30 a.m. Weather is overcast with light rain. Please return your seats to the upright position. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for arrival." Kiki stood up. Instinctively, she reached for the microphone to make the landing announcement. It was her job. It was what she had done for 20 years. Todd intercepted her hand before she could touch the receiver. "Sit down, Kiki," Todd said, his voice devoid of pity. "I'll do the announcement. You are not authorized to speak to the passengers." Kiki slumped back into the jump seat. She watched as Todd picked up the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London," Todd said, his voice warm and inviting. "We know you have a choice in airlines, and we apologize for any turbulence experienced during the boarding process today. We thank you for flying with us." He emphasized the word turbulence. Several passengers in first class looked at Kiki. Jared Lewis, the tech bro in 3A, caught Kiki's eye. He didn't smile. He just shook his head slowly, closed his laptop, and put it away. It was a gesture of finality. The landing gear deployed with a heavy thud whoosh. The ground was rushing up to meet them. For Malik, it was the sound of arrival. For Kiki, it was the sound of a gavel coming down. The wheels of the Boeing 777 kissed the wet tarmac of Heathrow runway 27R. The reverse thrusters roared, slowing the massive beast. As the plane taxied off the runway, the cabin filled with the usual sounds of buckles unclicking and overhead bins opening until the captain spoke again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated, with your seatbelts fastened. We have been directed to a remote stand for a special arrival procedure. Please remain in your seats until further instruction." A murmur of confusion rippled through the economy cabin, but in first class, everyone knew. The plane came to a halt, not at a jet bridge, but on a secluded part of the tarmac. A mobile stairs unit was driven up to the forward door L1. Through the windows, the passengers could see flashing blue lights, 2 police cars, a black luxury sedan, and a white van with the airline's logo. Kiki Vanderhold looked out the porthole window of the door. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to stop the rattling. "Police? For a ticket dispute?" The door opened. A rush of cold, damp London air filled the cabin. Usually, the flight attendant stood by the door to say goodbye. "Bye-bye. Thanks for flying. Bye-bye." Not today. Two officers from the Metropolitan Police boarded the aircraft. They were tall, wearing high-visibility jackets. Behind them was a woman in a sharp black suit, the station manager for Heathrow, and a man in a trench coat. Captain Graves stepped out of the cockpit. He pointed directly at the jump seat. "That's her," Graves said. The station manager, a woman named Miss Hargreaves, stepped forward. She held a clipboard. She didn't look angry. She looked efficient, like a surgeon about to cut out a tumor. "Kiki Vanderhole?" Miss Hargreaves asked. "Yes?" Kiki's voice was a squeak. "I can explain. The passenger was—" "Miss Vanderhold," Hargreaves interrupted, her British accent clipping the ends of her words. "Effective immediately, your employment is terminated for gross misconduct, violation of the Passenger Bill of Rights, and bringing the airline into severe disrepute." "Terminated?" Kiki gasped. "You can't do that here. I have a union rep. I need a hearing." "Your union representative has already viewed the footage," Hargreaves said calmly. "They have declined to contest the termination. You are also being charged by the Port Authority back in New York for filing a false police report, and Mr. Sterling has filed a formal complaint for harassment. The Metropolitan Police are here to escort you off the premises, as you no longer have a valid crew visa to enter the UK as an employee." "But how do I get home?" Kiki cried, tears finally spilling over. "You will be processed by immigration and placed on the next available flight back to New York," Hargreaves said. "In economy, middle seat. At your own expense." The brutality of the sentence hung in the air. Economy, middle seat, own expense. "Officers," Hargreaves nodded. The two police officers stepped forward. "Miss Vanderhold, please come with us." Kiki stood up. She looked at the cabin. She looked at the passengers she had tried to recruit to her side. Mrs. Gable in 2F looked away, busying herself with her purse. Jared Lewis in 3A was recording on his phone. Todd, her colleague, was staring at the floor. Then, she looked at Malik. He was standing now, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked tall. He didn't look like a thug. He didn't look like a fraud. He looked like a young man with a bright future. Kiki started, looking at Malik. "I was just doing my job." Malik looked her in the eye. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. "No," he said calmly. "You were doing your bias. There's a difference." "Let's go, love," the police officer said, taking Kiki by the elbow. They marched her off the plane. The sound of her heels on the metal stairs outside clanged like a funeral bell. As soon as she was gone, the tension in the cabin snapped. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Washington," Miss Hargreaves said, her demeanor changing instantly to one of warmth and apology. "Please, come with me. We have a car waiting. The chairman would like to speak with you personally via video call, and we have arranged for your transport to the city." Sterling nodded. "After you, Malik." Malik stepped into the aisle. And then, it happened. Jared Lewis, the tech bro, started clapping. Mrs. Gable joined in. The couple in row 4 clapped. It wasn't a raucous applause. It was a slow, respectful clap. A recognition of dignity maintained under fire. Malik felt a lump in his throat. He nodded to them, shyly. "Thanks," he whispered. He walked to the door. He stepped out onto the stairs. The cool wind hit his face. It felt like freedom. Down on the tarmac, he saw Kiki being loaded into the back of the white van. She was arguing with the driver, gesturing wildly, but nobody was listening. She was just noise now, background noise. Sterling stood beside Malik at the bottom of the stairs. The black luxury sedan was waiting. A driver held the door open. "You handled that well, kid," Sterling said. "You know, my company offers a summer internship program for students interested in global finance and media. It's competitive. Usually only for Harvard or Yale grads." Malik looked at him. "I haven't applied to college yet, sir." Sterling smiled, pulling out his phone. "I know. But after today, I have a feeling you can write your own ticket anywhere you want. Take my card. Call me on Monday." Malik took the card. It was heavy, textured, expensive. He looked at the van driving Kiki away, then at the sedan waiting for him. His phone buzzed. It was a text from his dad. "Just saw the update. Proud of you, son. The world saw who you are today." and they saw who she was. Malik typed back, "Thanks, Dad," landed safely. He got into the car. The leather was soft. The quiet was absolute. As they drove away from the plane, leaving the chaos behind, Malik Washington realized he hadn't just flown to London. He had flown into the rest of his life. The boarding pass in his pocket was crumpled, but it had taken him exactly where he needed to go. The story of Malik and Kiki serves as a powerful reminder. Dignity is a quiet force, while prejudice is a loud weakness. Kiki Vanderhold believed her uniform gave her the power to define who belonged and who didn't. But she forgot that in the modern world, the truth has a way of finding the light. The hard karma wasn't just Kiki losing her job, it was the world collectively deciding that her time was up. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder to never judge a book by its cover. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about justice served cold.